Oh, him? Yeah. I know him. It's going to take a while. It happened years ago. Did you know there are three kinds of aces? Those who seek strength, those who live for pride, and those who can read the tide of battle. Those are the three. And him? He was a true ace.
He was a fighter pilot they called Solo Wing Pixie. He was a colleague of the man I seek. 10 years ago, there was a war that engulfed the world. The Belkan War. And in that war was a pilot who trailed across the sky and disappeared from history. He was a lone mercenary who inspired both fear and admiration. He is the man I seek. And so, with the words of Solo Wing, the curtain rises.
It was a cold and snowy day.
The Belkan War is shrouded in mystery. But now, a decade after the peace accords, a portion of the records was finally released. I quickly got a hold of it. Wanting more details, I acquired information from unknown sources. There was a reason for my obsession. The roots of the war lie in the Belkan Federal Law Review that took place in 1988. Belka, suffering from economic strife, permitted its eastern territory to secede, and the Republic of Ustio was born. But Belka's economic troubles did not subside. Meanwhile, taking advantage of the situation, the world superpower Osea continued to flourish. Amidst the economic panic, an extreme right-wing party took power within Belka, aiming to restore strength and stability to the nation. And on March 25th, 1995, with the discovery of natural resources in Ustio, Belka began to invade its neighbors. It was the beginning of the Belkan War. Unprepared, each country fell quickly before the might of the legendary Belkan Air Force. In just a few days, they occupied all territories except for the mountain range. In response, the occupied Ustio government military placed all their hopes on a joint operation between Osea and the foreign mercenary forces. This, of course, can be found in any history book. But I noticed a strange similarity in the materials I gathered. There were several accounts about a mercenary, all followed by the code word, demon. But most of the information was incomplete. Still, I was intrigued. I decided to pursue the history of the Belkan War through this mercenary. I was certain I would find something there. Would it be the hidden truth behind the war, or just another battlefield legend? I wasn't able to meet the mercenary himself. Actually, it's questionable if he ever did exist. But thanks to some old friends in the military, I was able to track down several individuals who knew him. Soloing is one such man. The true nature of the war begins from this point forward. Accounts vary depending on the article and source. Everyone is a hero and a villain, and no one knows who is the victim and who is the aggressor. And what is peace? All questions commonly asked about any war in history. As the battlegrounds move to Belka, he is also thrust into the middle of this war. This is also where my interests shift from the war to him. My pulse raced at the astounding accomplishments of the mercenary known as Demon Lord. I forgot about my job and read everything I had on hand. Around the time Demon Lord received his nickname, South Belka showed signs of weariness regarding the war. Because the region was set up as a defense line to protect the birthplace of Belka in the north, the people's dissatisfaction had reached a climax. The cities declared themselves demilitarized and peacefully surrendered to the Allied forces. Unable to establish a defensive position, the Belkan army kept retreating to the north. The end of the war was fast approaching. I was given an opportunity to interview the former aces of the Belkan Air Force. Back then, they were the masters of the sky, and they had also known him. So I crossed the border to follow his trail. I wanted to capture the war and the Demon Lord from their point of view, to capture the voices of those who were there. Rot Team Commander, former member of the Belkan Air Force, 2nd Air Division, 52nd Tactical Fighter Squadron, Detlef Fleischer, also known as the Red Swallow. With his skill and demeanor, he was practically a poster boy for the armed forces. Today, he is a professor of history at the University of Dinsmark.
Back then, I was bursting with pride. I wanted to lead us to victory, for Belka's honor. Staying where it was nice and warm wouldn't accomplish anything. My flight's mission was to maintain air superiority in Area B7R, an essential area that we couldn't allow to be violated. That day, when I heard the order from HQ for reinforcements, I became angry. The station force was in chaos because of just 2 mercenaries. There was no way the mighty Belkan Air Force could lose to mere mercenaries. My pride was shot, and the round table was defiled. What went wrong? Whatever it may be, the fact remains I was forced to walk a different path in life than the one I had envisioned.
Gelb Team's number 2, former member of the Belkan Air Force, 5th Air Division, 23rd Tactical Fighter Squadron, Rainer Altman. He flew the skies of Directus during the capital's liberation, and he's still there to this day.
I met him above this very sky. I can still hear the sound of the missile alerts from that day. I received an order to fly to Directus on my way back from an intercept mission on the southern defense line. The order itself wasn't unusual. We kept being deployed from one mission to the next without receiving even the basic maintenance. But the situation was the same all around. We were late reaching the operational space. The station squadrons had already retreated, and warning bells were going off in the city. And the people were looking up to his plane, high above the sky. He pursued me relentlessly. As soon as I thought I'd shook him off, there he was again. The never-ending sound of the missile alerts put fear in my heart for the first time.
This man was head of the command group and was known as the Vulture. Schwartz Team Commander, Dominik Zubov, former member of the Belkan Air Force, 13th Night Fighter Air Division, 6th Tactical Fighter Squadron. He fled after the final battle in order to avoid prosecution for various war crimes. He is still on the run and being hunted as an escaped killer.
Sorry about the accommodations. Goes with the business. I'm not active during the day. Back then, I was a shadow assassin, an escapee killer. Given the order, I'd even shoot down my own comrades. I received an order to take down deserting craft on that day. It was a typical assignment. But something unexpected happened. My target was no new recruit, but a top ace of the Belkan Air Force.
And he just had to go and run straight into the chaos at the round table.
The man was sharp, just like the rumors. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that the mercenary team of Solo Wing and him were there. Thanks to them, I lost my target. I figured the least I could do was take them down in return. Of course, that was where my luck ran out.
Every time I flew with him, his skill stood out. He was unstoppable. It didn't matter where the battlefield was. The man had complete trust in his own powers. He was born for battle, a demon lord who struck down all opposition. He paid no heed to the troubles of those who flew with him. Before long, everyone had taken notice of him. More and more would show up to watch him go off on sortie. Mercenaries or maintenance crew, it didn't matter. People wanted to burn his image to their memories. Hell, they weren't the only ones.
June 6th, 1995. I was still in school at the time, but I'll never forget the images I saw on the news that day. The Belkans set off 7 nuclear explosions on their own soil. Maybe their old militaristic leaders couldn't stand the idea of Allied forces invading their land, and declared to the world that the land to the north was the Holy Land of Belka. According to official records, more than 12,000 people died. It was a grand self-sacrifice that engulfed all. The only thing remaining was the desolate landscape. How did the people of Belka feel about what they saw? And what did he think of it when he looked down on it from the sky? June 20th, 1995. A treaty declaring a cessation of hostilities was signed in Lumen, a city on the border of South Belka and Osea. It was a one-sided treaty that heavily favored Osea. The borders of the affected countries that fluxed greatly over the past years finally settled down at the cost of many human lives. The battlefield shifted to the tables, and the politicians from all countries squabbled with each other over the rights to the underground natural resources, the initial cause of this war. 6 months passed without any developments. 6 months of void. I focused on this time period for the hidden truth laid there. And I learned that my pursuit of him was not a mistake. So this is the hidden truth about the war. And this is where his trail ends as well. The impact of the 7 nuclear detonations on the world's psyche was great. Those who witnessed the carnage went on to organize a global arms reduction. Perhaps they were admonishing themselves. Furthermore, the existence of V2 was concealed. The events that occurred after the war faded from people's memories, and these men were also sealed away from history. Maybe this was one path to achieve peace. And here the curtain falls on this story. However, that does not mean their own stories came to an end.
War is something fought on the desk of politicians. As long as they win in the end, that's all that matters. But for us, it's a matter of survival. In order to survive, you need to analyze the situation in an instant. It's the same as living in a city. The rules of this little city apply just as well to that wide open sky. That guy had the same feel about him as this city.
A nation is comprised of the individuals who live in its borders. It can only become a nation when it is supported by those individuals. But mercenaries who cross lines in allegiance for money have no country to protect. They only fight for their own power and fame. But if that was the case, then why did I lose to him? Maybe not having the burden of a nation allows you to fly faster.
Is the man still alive? Though I guess it's hard for bad guys like us to die. The real heroes always manage to die first. But guys like him, Solo Wing, and me, we live the rest of our lives in hell. But then again, being alive is proof that we were good.
Marcela Vasquez, the Espada team's number 2 and former member of the Sapan Air Force, 9th Air and Land Division, 11th Tactical Fighter Squadron. She is thought to be a survivor of the coup d'etat squadron. She currently earns a living as a dancer.
If the Demon Lord hadn't appeared, our lives might have been different. For me, it wasn't about flying or ideals. Most of all, it was about him, my flight lead. Our mission was to escort the heavy command cruiser that was to act as transportation for the organization. And the Demon Lord appeared, as if to block our path. I will never forget his overwhelming power. One by one, my comrades were shot down, and then the mother bird we were supposed to protect. I returned alive from that battlefield, and I returned to this city where I grew up. I left the organization, too. I never went back to the sky again. There's no meaning there now that he's gone. He died in that fight. But I don't blame anyone. The regret and suffering that remained after that battle were also what he had given me. They're among the precious few things he left behind.
Anthony Palmer, former lieutenant of the Ocean Air Defense Force, 8th Air Division, 32nd Tactical Fighter Squadron. He's been missing for some time, along with Captain Bristow of the same unit, since the decisive Battle of Valdreich. Captain Bristow is rumored to be one of the founding members of A World with No Boundaries. Palmer's ties to the captain have led many to believe that he is a high-ranked individual within the group. He currently works for an insurance company based in Aurid, the capital city of Osea.
Demon Lord was right. Everything he touched fell apart. I thought I was watching magic. When I was in the military, they called me an ace too. I got medals for my actions on numerous battlefields. I never felt fear toward an opponent. The same went for my ideals. I wasn't afraid to take on even an entire country. But when I was fighting him, something felt different. At first, I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I noticed my hands shaking on the flight stick that I realized. It was fear. It's embarrassing, but once I felt that, I couldn't fly anymore. I felt guilt toward my companions at the time. There's always a war somewhere, and I'm sure he's on some battlefield somewhere fighting even now. He'll always have a place to live.
Larry Falk, also known as Solo Wing Pixie. Galm Team's number 2 and member of the Ustio Air Force, 6th Air Division, 66th Air Force Unit. That's right. This man was his buddy and his enemy.
I should have died that day, but I didn't. I dragged my wounded body and reached ground zero of the nuclear detonations. A barren, empty land. I felt an unbearable sadness when I witnessed that landscape. There were still people living there. They were the ones that saved me. It may be true that the world has no need of borders, but would getting rid of them really change anything? The world won't change for the better unless we trust people. Trust is vital in a peaceful world, but that will never happen. I'm still on the battlefield. Right now I'm near a border. I want to see for myself what borders really mean, and what their volition really is. I may not find what I'm looking for, but I still want to try. Anyway, that's what I've come to believe, and I think that's enough. Will he see this video? If you do meet him, give him a message for me. Yo, buddy. Still alive? And thanks, friend. See you again.
The Demon Lord of the Round Table, a warrior who soared through the Belkan War, inspiring both fear and admiration. His presence filled the skies for but a few short months before he disappeared. Apart from that, nothing is known about him. I was never able to find out what kind of a person he really was. But whenever they talked about him, they always had a slight smile on their faces. That, perhaps, may be my answer.